Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast for Christians United for God and Country and the United States Prayer Force. I'm Steve D, along with Pastor Vince, and we're here doing the podcast in the morning for the first time. So we've got, something to stay warm with. We're up here in the New England area, and we've had a little rain. We thought we were going to get some snow. We haven't gotten any yet, but it's been pretty cold. Temperatures below freezing already. Usually that doesn't hit till January, but hey, you never know. Weather in New England is never really predictable. We're here to talk about things that will help us pray better for America. And there's lots to pray about. Lots of prayers have been answered, too. No doubt about that. And if you're in tune with the news, you're probably keeping up with President Trump's cabinet selections. Now, you know what happened with Matt Gaetz. He was selected by President Trump to be Attorney General, and it didn't work out for him because he faced accusations of ethical impropriety, if you will. And Matt Gaetz basically backed out, saying he's not going to cause any trouble for the Trump administration in doing these cabinet appointments. However, there's another fellow who is going through a great deal of difficulty in trying to make his case for becoming the Secretary of Defense, and that is Pete Hegseth. You know Pete Hegseth from Fox News. He works on the weekend program as a morning host, and he has a lot of history in the military. He served in active duty combat, and he's been a great supporter of veterans, and he is a true patriot. However, if you watch certain news channels, you're going to hear a lot of things about Pete Hegseth that might change your mind about him. For example, Pete Hegseth has been accused of public drunkenness, improper treatment of women, financial mismanagement in previous positions of responsibility. If those things are proven true, is Pete a good candidate for the position of Secretary of Defense? Hegseth was forced to step down, they say, from leadership posts at two nonprofit advocacy groups, Veterans for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America. A recently disclosed police report revealed that a woman accused Hegseth of raping her at a 2017 Republican Women's Conference in Monterey, California. But no charges were filed. The police investigated, and Hegseth claimed that the encounter was consensual. He wound up paying the woman as part of a non-disclosure agreement. And the Washington Post first reported that last month. Okay, so it sounds like Pete Hegseth could be a pretty bad guy. But if you listen to the other side of the story, and you remember all of the accusations that President Trump has faced, and go back in time a little bit and remember how they accused Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh during his hearings to become to get onto the Supreme Court. He was accused of all kinds of impropriety. And I mentioned this several times in the podcast, Pastor. When I'm at work, I have to watch MSNBC all day. It's on in the control room where I work. And if you could hear what they're saying, they have basically, cast Pete Hegseth to the dogs. He's a man of very poor character. He is, just no way qualified to do the job of Secretary of Defense. But if you talk to Pete's closest friends, if you talk to Pete's co-workers, if you talk to people who worked with Pete in organizations like Veterans for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America, they will vouch for Pete's character. They will say he is a true patriot. They'll say, yes, he was a little bit of a rowdy guy at times, as many of us were in our younger days. But they say what the left is doing is they're taking these things and they're exaggerating them to a point where they're trying to make it impossible for Pete to be confirmed in that position. So here's my suggestion, folks. If you watch the news at all, make sure you do watch Fox News, Newsmax, OAN. Hear that side of the story. Listen to Megyn Kelly's latest interview she had with Pete Hegseth. And you'll hear Pete in his own words describe the things he went through. He knows he was a hardcore military fighter, and those guys, they come back and they do have, maybe a few beers too many and things like that. But Pete even said this recently, Pastor. He said if he gets the job as Secretary of Defense, he says no drop of alcohol will ever touch his lips as long as he's in that position.
Well, and you brought this up in our private conversation.
Yes.
All right. I don't know when, but at the present time, Pete Hegseth claims to be a born-again Christian.
That's
Now,
it.
when that happened in his life, I don't know the facts.
No, we don't.
When he accepted Christ as his Savior, but supposedly at this present day and time, he's married and he's trying to be a good dad, good husband, and living as he ought to live.
Yes.
Now, I don't know all the facts about his life in regard to these personal things, but that's what I understand now. But as we've said before, if you're, in regard to the Democrats, they'll go back, you disobeyed your mom and you didn't eat your spinach when you were 5 years old. They'll bring up anything from as far back in the past as they can possibly find.
That's right.
But when it comes to their own, they'll overlook,
Right.
all kinds of despicable things.
That's right. Well, that is exactly my point. Pete Hegseth, in his interview with Megyn Kelly, did bring it out into the open that he is a born-again Christian, that he does center his life on the gospel of Jesus Christ. And like I say, when a man becomes a Christian, when a man becomes a born-again Christian, he is a changed man. A lot of the things that he has done in the past are no longer permissible in his life, and God and the Lord has forgiven him. Now it's time maybe America could forgive him too of his youthful indiscretions. This man is a true patriot. This man is a true military supporter. He will be a man that I believe would do a great service to this country in that position.
And might I just interject here that before we actually started our podcast here, I had actually gotten a news blip on my telephone.
Yeah.
All right. That the New York Post, all right, is saying that all Republican senators now are in favor of approving Pete Hegseth,
Right.
all right, to that position of Secretary of Defense. And in actuality, all right, all you need is a majority.
Yes.
In order to be confirmed. You only need 51.
51, right.
And
right.
so, even if it was 50-50, well, if they waited till after.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
President Trump was,
Sure.
took the oath of office, Vice President Vance would cast the tie-breaking vote.
Right. Here's something that came up on the news as I was driving into work, and this is rather interesting. The LPGA, the Ladies Professional Golf Association, has produced a ruling for their organization. They're saying that if a player has experienced puberty, that they can no longer play in the women's golf tournaments. Okay. Now, I know that sounds surprising, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. The LPGA, Ladies Professional Golf Association, has made that ruling that transgender women, guys that have converted themselves, or tried to anyway, to convert themselves into women, cannot play in ladies professional golf tournaments. That to me is a very critical ruling, because it's going to have a great influence on all the other sports and that whole situation. Now, Pastor, I know that there's a big Supreme Court case going on right now, and you're going to tell us a little bit about that. What do you got for us?
All right. To get us started, I want to just speak kind of a little blurb here.
Sure.
That we'll call it While the World Burns. And one of the signs that will signal the beginning of the tribulation period after the rapture of the church is found in Matthew's gospel. These words spoken by the Lord Jesus Christ to his disciples. Matthew 24, verse number 6 says, And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And so we're already seeing some of the previews of what is going to take place in regard to these tribulation signs that the Lord's speaking about happening right now. About a week ago, as most you will have heard in regard to the news, Israel and the terrorist organization Hezbollah, which is located in the southern part of the country of Lebanon, agreed to a ceasefire agreement. And already, not even a week or more into that ceasefire agreement, Hezbollah has been attacking northern Israel with rocket attacks, breaking their agreement as far as, what this peace treaty said.
Sure.
And, Israel is being forced to retaliate. Many of those people who lived in the northern part of Israel, because of those rocket attacks, were forced to leave their homes. And when the peace or the ceasefire agreement was, put into effect, Israel began to move some of these people who had been displaced from their homes back into northern Israel. But already, as we said, Hezbollah has violated that agreement. And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed, we are enforcing this ceasefire with an iron fist, acting against any violation, minor or major. And so, and he said also that in regard to the country of Lebanon, the state country of Lebanon, there will no longer be any exemptions, meaning that, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization.
Sure.
They operate in the southern part of Lebanon. All right. In essence, they act independently from the government of Lebanon. And up until now, Israel has, in regard to their attacks on Hezbollah, has just been attacking their particular sites in that southern part of the country. But now it's going to be, everything's open. Okay. The state of Lebanon, the government of Lebanon, in regard to their country, they might be attacked by the nation of Israel if they do not do anything to stop Hezbollah from, these violations in regard to their ceasefire. Another thing, about a week ago, President Trump warned Hamas that if the hostages being held by them, now there are still some American hostages. In fact, this country, a young man who was, I believe, about 21 years of age from the state of New York. He was actually killed on October the 7th. His family believing that until now he was alive and being held hostage, finding out that, he'd been dead for more than a year, and Hamas has just, kept his body. Right. But President Trump warned that if you don't release the hostages, American, and I believe he's talking about Israelis too, Israeli hostages, he said there will be hell to pay. And he said that Hamas would be hit with a force that has never been known before. And you know what? Thank God that someone is going to hold these people accountable. But anyways, that's another thing that could, there's the possibility of escalation there. There's the possibility of escalation in regard to this broken ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And also probably a thing going on here that we hear about, in the news, but we know very little about because it really doesn't affect us. But at the present time, all right, Syria, the country of Syria, is in the midst of a civil war. Yes. All right. And that could add fuel to the fire in regard to what's going on in the Middle East. And in regard to that, I'll just give you a little information about. There are several players in regard to what is going on there. And this conflict in regard to the civil war has actually been going on since the year 2011. And there are, as we said, several players involved in this civil war. First of all, you have the current Syrian government, which is under the leadership of President Bashar al-Assad, who has, as I said, he has been, this has been going on since 2011, but he has been the president of Lebanon, of Syria, all right, since the year 2000. His father, was the president of Syria from 1971 until the year 2000. All right, his father had been a military man, military leader before he actually became the president of Syria. And then at the time of his death, his son, Bashar al-Assad, became the president of Syria. He's been president, as we said, since the year 2000. But not only is his government is being backed by the Russians. Right. The Russian government is backing him. And not only is he backed by the Russians, he is backed by Hezbollah. Sure. And his government is also backed by Iran. And so you have that part. That's one faction there in regard to the civil war that's taking place. And then you have the opposition forces. And these want to end, Bashar al-Assad's rule. And they want to establish, in actuality, a more modern, civil, democratic state. All right. And this group is backed, you got the Kurds. Remember, the Kurds are a group of people in Turkey. They're also backed by the government of Turkey. And then they're also backed by the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood and some Assyrian factions, and also the Alawis. That's a Muslim sect. But they want to have a more modern government there in Syria. And so this fighting is taking place. In fact, just a few days ago, this faction that's warring against the al-Assad government took control of the second largest city in Syria, which is Aleppo.
Mhm.
So there's some stuff going on there,
Oh yeah.
that could overflow into the entire area.
Mhm.
What you have in essence, you have Muslims fighting against Muslims.
Right.
Okay. And also one more thing before we continue on. You got Joe Biden doing all kinds of crazy things before he leaves office. But one thing that he wants to do before he leaves office is he wants to give Ukraine $725 million, $725 million package, all right, a weapons package before he leaves office in January.
Mhm.
Now what's today? December 5th, all right?
7th.
7th. All right, we're doing this again. So,
We're actually recording this program on Thursday, the 5th, but it's reaching you on Saturday the 7th.
but anyways, with less, okay, with just less than 40 something days, 45 days left to his administration. Okay, you would think that he would just be clearing the table, so to speak, to allow the new administration to do whatever they're going to do,
Right.
instead of trying to heighten, what is going on, and giving, he's given more than this to Ukraine in the past, but giving $725 million.
That's right.
He just gave $1 billion to some African countries,
Angola.
to fight,
To deal with
green energy, so forth and so on.
damage from storms. And
Yeah,
things
okay, that's what it was.
Well, that's nice.
Right.
Very nice.
And so you got $1 billion going to Africa. You got $750 million almost going to Ukraine again, and you have people in this country still in Carolina, so forth and so on, who from the current Hurricane Helene have not received what they need in order to get their lives back together.
They're living in shelters and things like that in various places, I heard.
Yeah. So anyways, that's one thing. Now getting back to what you just mentioned a little bit ago, right now, currently, the Supreme Court is hearing a case against the state of Tennessee, which has been the case is being brought by 3 transgender teens, all right, their families, a Memphis physician, and the Biden administration. All right, now, more than a year ago, Tennessee passed a law which bans minors from receiving puberty blockers and hormone therapy in order to change their sex. And the Biden administration contends that the law violates the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection, and should be examined with a higher scrutiny in regard to such cases. Now, the state of Tennessee is countering, and they're saying that they're simply exercising their power as a state to regulate the practice of medicine for all youth, and they're not distinguishing based on a patient's sex. And that's what, the plaintiffs are saying, that by preventing these minors from receiving these puberty blockers, so forth and so on, they're making a decision based upon one sex. And naturally, when it comes to liberals, you can't do anything based upon a person's sex. Right. But thank God there are about 23 other states right now that have laws similar to the state of Tennessee's. And in regard to puberty blockers and hormone therapy, those drugs are used in other type of medical treatments. Sure. And so the lawyers are saying that if these drugs are used in other types of medical treatments, all right, to forbid the drug being given to these minors is who are suffering from the word transgender dysphoria is based on a person's sex.
Yes.
And that is completely wrong. Now it appears that the Supreme Court, when they ultimately make their decision, that they're going to make their decision in favor of the state of Tennessee. Exactly. Right. And they're basically saying, what they've already kind of made mention in the arguments is, this decision needs to be regulated by the people of the state. Sure. Okay. And not by the Supreme Court or any other court. All right. And but you hear some of the the absolute nonsense. And I think you had mentioned that one of the lawyers for the plaintiffs is a transgender person. Correct. All right. And but I don't know if it was this person that we're making reference to or another ACLU ACLU lawyer, and you can count on it that if it's wicked, if it's ungodly, if it's anti-God, that the ACLU is going to be for it.
Yeah.
All right. But this, I'm going to say idiot, because that's what he is. All right. Whatever they started out in life as. All right. This person made this statement. He said, a child at 2 years of age knows if he or she is transgender.
And like we said before, a 2-year-old child does not even have consciousness that they are alive. They're not going to remember what's going on when they were 1 and 2 years old. Maybe a few people will have a few glimpses of memory. You know what's interesting about this issue, Pastor, is that they're trying to take the rights of parents away from making decisions for their own children. Now, that's currently not the way the law works. Parents are still responsible for their children. And this ruling that the Supreme Court is dealing with is really directed at parents, saying that, should the parents have a right to make decisions, medical decisions for their children? And they're claiming that under this transgender ideology, that many children are suffering grievously to the point of suicide because they're in the wrong body, which to me is absurd. And if you listen and do the research, you'll find out that there's a lot of research says that is nonsense. That is nonsense. Well, if those kids are having psychological troubles, that's for other reasons.
Yes.
Not because they're in the wrong body.
And they are committing suicide, okay, to the extent that they say, I think I heard a report, 40%, okay, of those who are in the midst of their transgender dysphoria, if we could use that word, do commit suicide. Now, they're not committing suicide necessarily because they can't change their sex. Okay, that's not the issue.
No, it's a deeper issue.
They're committing suicide because they are messed up spiritually, and they are messed up psychologically.
Correct.
And that's why they're committing suicide.
Right. And don't you think also that this push to affect children so drastically in regards to something so serious, I mean, could it not then lead to a day when you have people arguing in the Supreme Court that adults should have the right to have sex with children, that pedophiles should be normalized? They're healthy people. They just think differently, some kind of thought like that, which to me is an abomination, and in no way. I mean, it's moving in that direction. Could it get that far? I don't know.
It probably can, and it probably will, because you have people on the other side of the argument that anything that's wicked and ungodly, that's what they're in favor for. Right. And the negative term is pedophilia, but they'll, change that terminology to make it sound like it's something good. But I just saw an article. I didn't, look at it real closely, but there is a man. Yes. He was born male. Mm-hmm. He has some, degree of notoriety in the rock music world, and he began a number of years ago, to change his sex, and then you know what? He changed his mind. And he is. Did he
go too far with the procedures?
No. Okay. He is now back to being a man. Well, I don't think he had any. Well, he did. He had breasts. Okay, surgically put on him.
And now you have him take them off.
Now he's having them taken off, and he's going back to being a man.
Well, wonderful.
Okay, and now you know what? He's happy.
I'm not surprised, but there's also several people who have gone through all kinds of procedures, puberty blockers and stuff, and their lives have been ruined, and they're coming out and they're speaking about it and saying this is wrong. Leave the children alone. Help them in the areas where they really need help, not in this ridiculous transgender ideology. Folks, we're glad you're listening today to the podcast for Christians United for God and Country and the United States Prayer Force. If you have a chance, go to our website and join the prayer force, ChristiansUnited50.com, ChristiansUnited50.com. Over there, you can join the prayer force. We'd love to hear from you. And also, you can go to the donate page. We do appreciate this. And somebody just made a wonderful donation to us. A couple of folks did, and we are so thankful to those who have donated. You can do the same. Send something via U.S. mail, Christians United, P.O. Box 2275, Stamford, Connecticut 06906. Or get to that donate page on the website. And thank you once again for your donations. Every penny we receive is used exclusively for Christians United and the Prayer Force. We don't put a penny in our pockets. We're extremely wealthy as we are, right, Pastor? No, we're not wealthy. It's interesting. This podcast is designed to help you and to help us figure out the best ways to pray for our country. So we make observations, we look at the news, we see what's going on, and we pray. And it looks like God has answered a lot of our prayers. And we thank you for praying as well. Pastor, final word before we sign off today.
Well, yes, we want you to pray, as Brother Steve's already said. And we need to realize that, even though we have a new administration coming into, office here in another couple of months, January 20th, we are still in the midst of not a civil war, but a spiritual war.
Big time.
There are forces on the other side of these issues that we're talking about. They're organized. All right. They're seeking to implement, their agenda, and they are going to fight every step of the way against those who are trying to do the things that are right. So we need to pray for our leaders, and we need to pray for our country. We need to pray that there's a turning back to God and a turning back
Amen.
to righteousness. So pray.
Amen. And thank you so much for watching. We hope to help you tune in again next week. Thanks again. Bye now.